We have civilian control of our military in the United States, and we've now done stories on FBI whistleblowers, and we're very concerned about the role of the intelligence community in encouraging censorship by social media platforms. And for me, even though I have been looking at this particular issue for a long time, we have a situation here where we have a very important whistleblower who the intelligence community's inspector general said has credible and urgent information. We have the DoD's special department on this, which is called ARROW. In April, the director of that program said that there was no credible evidence. The inspector general contradicted that. That now the DoD spokesperson told us and others that there's no verifiable evidence. However, this evidence does appear to be verifiable. You need to go into these facilities and look for these craft.
Chris Lehto, welcome to Lehto Files. That was Michael Shellenberger on Rising YouTube channel. Rising is one of the few news stations that has really been talking about the UAP, the phenomenon. Michael D. Shellenberger is an American author and former public relations professional whose writing has focused on the intersection of politics, the environment, climate change, and nuclear power. It's really nuclear power that had him come across the UAP, the phenomenon. He's also written how he believes progressivism is linked to homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness. He's a co-founder of the Breakthrough Institute and the California Peace Coalition. He's also the founder of Environmental Progress. Most recently, Shellenberger is known for the Twitter Files. If you've heard of that, he was along with Matt Taibbi that broke the story on the Twitter Files.
I will say I haven't written any commentary about the piece itself. I am planning on writing more about it, but I have actually been interviewing people for several years and only felt comfortable at this point, and in part I felt obliged to share this research and to go back to folks. But I've been talking to folks for a long time, in part because you may know I have spent a long time working on nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is a dual-use technology. And it was actually in that work that I started to come across a lot of evidence of UFOs, or what have been rebranded UAPs, but a significant amount of interaction of these UAPs and UFOs, including the most famous alleged crash in history occurred around nuclear weapons test sites and also nuclear weapon sites.
As you saw, he's interested in nuclear energy for environmental purposes because he personally believes, he says, that nuclear energy is necessary to get us to a renewable and sustainable future. Personally, I don't think that is true. It's not necessary. Tesla showed in their 2022 environmental impact report that we can totally get there just with renewable energy, with our current technology. We don't need any amazing new alien technology. We don't even need nuclear technology because we already have a nuclear fission reactor always there up in the sky. And we can get free energy like everything else on this planet has gotten free energy from the sun. So we can definitely do that. Anyway, for his interest, that's how he got into investigating this. So Shellenberger is out investigating nuclear energy and on his own, separate. He hasn't mentioned any of this till recently, but for 6 years, he's been investigating and coming across UAPs. He's coming across these retrieval programs. He mentioned there the actual retrieval program, and particularly with Roswell. So Roswell and Trinity. Trinity was the first nuclear explosion, right? And that's where we had, at least that I've heard of in the US, the first actual retrieval or possible retrieval was in 1945. And then in 47, Shellenberger mentions here in this interview here that he came across it on his own. Shellenberger is saying that he did come across this information. He stumbled on the actual unidentified anomalous phenomenon. He stumbled upon the anomalous phenomenon through his investigations into nuclear energy. We know nukes and the phenomena are somehow related. There's some intricate relationship there. We just don't know what it is.
Is there any connection, Michael, between this existence of the UFOs or the non-human entities and nuclear research?
There's definitely something going on that I certainly don't entirely understand. There's, in fact, there's a major book. I've interviewed the author of it called UFOs and Nukes that describes many cases of anomalous UFO activity around nuclear weapons sites, but there's also been significant UFO sightings and reports around nuclear power plants. The nature of those interactions suggests that whatever is behind those craft is expressing some concern around these sites. I'm very reluctant to get too far into it, in part because I'm a big supporter of nuclear energy. I think it's the only way to really address climate change and other important environmental issues. So, but nonetheless, nuclear obviously is as a weapon, is a very powerful and potentially dangerous technology. And so it does seem like there is something big going on there. And I would just note, we have civilian control of our military in the United States. And we've now done stories on FBI whistleblowers, and we're very concerned about the role of the intelligence community in encouraging censorship by social media platforms. And for me, even though I have been looking at this particular issue for a long time, we have a situation here where we have a very important whistleblower who the intelligence community's inspector general said has credible and urgent information. We have the DoD's special department on this, which is called ARROW. In April, the director of that program said that there was no credible evidence. The inspector general contradicted that. That now the DoD spokesperson told us and others that there's no verifiable evidence. However, this evidence does appear to be verifiable.
Like he says there, this evidence does appear to be verifiable. You just actually have to go and look. You have to actually go and verify. You can't just say that's impossible. There's no way we could have alien craft, and there's no way we could have alien bodies. It's just impossible, so we're not even going to look, which is basically what's going on right now. And so Shellenberger mentions there Kirkpatrick, leader of the ARROW, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Their job was to actually find out what was the anomalies, right? What are the anomalies? And resolve them. I think they resolved them by saying, there's nothing to see here, right? And Kirkpatrick sat up there and said, hey, there's nothing to see here. There's no credible evidence of extraterrestrial beings, non-human intelligence, essentially. But that's not true, is it? Shellenberger just said right here, actually, there is credible evidence. The Inspector General of the intelligence community, the IGIC, supported Grush's claims. He said there is actually credible evidence. You can literally use those words, credible. The claims by Grush are credible. So when Kirkpatrick sits up there and says that there's no credible evidence, he's blatantly lying. He says, well, ARROW has received no credible evidence. And also we know that is not true because ARROW has received testimonies that we have seen on this channel. Mario Woods gave a testimony, the same one that he gave to the ARROW. And yet we hear there's no credible evidence, but there is, isn't there? And it can even be verified. There is verifiable evidence. So Shellenberger here, true journalist, broke the Twitter files, is saying that we need to go and look.
Were there pilots of the craft? Do we know anything about that? Is there anything you can say to that effect?
David Grush, the whistleblower, did say on News Nation that there were, in some cases, non-human pilots.
What?
I did have confirmation of that from one of my sources. I kept it out of the story in part because it was one source, and also I felt like I really wanted to establish that there is strong evidence that there are craft, and I didn't want to get too much into what I had been told about the different potential of there being beings. It's a lot of ontological shock with just the craft, and I felt like, let's just give this a minute and let's spend a little bit more time doing this reporting. I would also say I'm not the only person that's interviewing these folks. There are other people in my article. I mentioned former Assistant Defense Secretary Christopher Mellon mentioned at least 4 witnesses. I think he said in his article in Politico over 4 people. I don't know if those are the same people I spoke to. We don't share information with each other, but there's more people that are finding the courage to speak. They're very scared. They don't want to lose security clearance, and they're also worried about retaliation. And David Grush, as you know, the whistleblower, felt like he needed to go to Congress because he was subject to retaliation.
So we see right there, Shellenberger said it himself. There do have bodies, that there are bodies, alien bodies. But he said he didn't put it, again, people are not putting this into the story. They don't want to put bodies into the story. Why? It's too far of a reach. The ontological shock is just too much, right? People, they can't even believe that we would have craft, actual physical craft, much less actual physical beings, right? Just can't even believe it. So Shellenberger right there says that he left it out of the story. He left it out of his story. I've heard that multiple times. We've heard that multiple times. Why? Because it's too much of a reach. The ontological shock is too much, that people just won't believe it. He himself just said it right there. He left it out. Okay, he is a journalist, prides himself on giving out truthful information. But even in this case, he said it's just too much of a reach to even consider that we could have beings, right? That we could actually have beings. I'm curious what you think as the audience. Do you think there are beings? Do you think there's beings? Do you think there are craft? Do you think we have craft? What it looks like to me is based on these whistleblowers, based on the independent journalists out there, Shellenberger, Ross Coulthart, Christopher Mellon, are they really just all happen to be talking to the same incorrect sources? That has happened in the past. When the US went into Iraq, supposedly it was based off of one analyst in NASIC, deep in the bowels of NASIC, said that they had weapons of mass destruction. And from that one intelligence source, it spread to other sources. So everyone thinks they're hearing from multiple sources, but it's really the same person. Could it be something like that? Or is this something real, where Shellenberger, not even interested in the phenomena, but he's interested in nuclear energy, stumbles across this? And you hear him say he actually was reticent to actually bring it up. He was reticent to talk about the nuclear weapon angle, the nuclear energy angle. Why? Because he's a supporter of nuclear energy. And what is he seeing here is it appears that the phenomenon, for whatever reason, seems aligned against nuclear weapons, or they seem very interested in our nuclear weapon capability. Maybe seeing what we're doing, what our plans are plans to turn the nukes onto them. Is that what they're talking about? Or are they concerned that we will destroy our own planet through our own ineptitude? Is that what the concern is? So I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Very excited. I know I've been down lately, disappointed, but I really am optimistic. Thank you so much for being here today. Please consider hitting the like button if you do like this video, and subscribe for future notifications. I release videos every Tuesday and Friday. You can always get additional exclusive content, as well as support me, support the channel. I have no sponsors. If you'll notice, you can go to patreon.com/Chris Lehto. Thanks again for being here. So excited about all the recent breakthroughs. Hopefully we will see UAP hearings next week. What do you guys think? Hope to see it. All right. Have a great day. Peace.